Welcome everyone to today's training. Today we're going to be going over the new YESCO expense reporting system. So the expense reporting system has undergone a few changes. There have been mostly user experience and aesthetic changes, so it's got a more modern look. But there have been a few features added as well, which we'll cover today in this training. It's a pretty simple and easy system to use, so we're going to dive right in. Your username and password are going to be the same as the old expense reporting system, or if you use Servizio, it is the same username and password. If you forgot that, I highly recommend clicking this forgot password and resetting that. So we're going to go ahead and log in. You're going to notice that as we log in here, the look of the whole application is changed. We have the menu here on the left-hand side. We have the title, this action bar here with a few options we'll cover, and then we have the data or the list of expenses. So here on the home screen, we've got all of our unsubmitted expenses that have been imported into the system if we have a company card. And it's also a place where we can add new out-of-pocket expenses to be submitted, and we can manage our receipts that we've uploaded either through here or through the mobile application. And then every page has this bar where we can search and we can edit our user information. Clicking on this brings this drop down, we can edit our account information, and we can sign out. Going over the other menu navigation tabs, we've got My Submitted Expenses. After you submit an expense, it'll be here in this queue where you can monitor the status of those expenses. We have the mileage reimbursements, which is a new feature to the expense reporting system that we'll go over here in a second. These two tabs are just for supervisors. These are the expenses to approve and the mileages to approve. And then for admins, controllers, and certain accountants, we have the All Expenses tab and the Admin Dashboard. All right, we're going to go through these first three because these are the three tabs that most users are going to need to use and understand. And they're also the basics for all of the other functions of the web application. So first off, we're going to look at here. We've already looked at the user information, which is the same on every tab. We're going to look at the manage receipts. These buttons right here, these action buttons, are not common to every tab or every page. Each page has different ones, and so these are specific to your home or unsubmitted expenses screen. So clicking the manage receipts button, we get to see all of the receipts that we have uploaded. We have the option to enlarge them, delete them, or upload new receipts. Uploading new receipts, we choose a file that opens your personal computer's file system. You open that file and then you upload it. That new file will be at the top of the list. They are ordered chronologically, so the most recent receipts you've uploaded or taken pictures of using the mobile app will show up at the top. Your older receipts will be at the bottom. As you link these receipts to expenses, they will leave this list and they will be attached to the expense. So these are only unused receipts in here. Creating a new expense is just for out-of-pocket expenses. If you used cash or a personal card for a business expense, this is what you would do. You'd open this pop-up up, fill out all of the required info, and then you would save it. All of these starred fields are required and you need to fill them out. You have the ability to enter comments as well to your supervisor if there's more explaining that needs to be done. This field is important. This is the total amount that you want to be reimbursed. And then down here, just like the old expense reporting system, you have your expense allocations. This is how we divide up the expenses amount into different accounting allocations or accounts within the system. So as you can see here, these are pre-filled with information. These are my user defaults. if you don't see any pre-filled information, or if your pre-filled information is incorrect, like your most used account or your location or your department isn't what it actually is, contact YESCO software support and they'll get that straightened out. All right, but to edit these, you can either double click, brings up a list of all the accounts. You can do that with locations, you can do that with departments, or you can erase the whole thing that's in there. It gives you kind of some filler text. And then you can type in, for example, travel, and it will filter that list down to only the travel options. We're not going to save this. We're just going to move on for now. But moving on, we have all of the expenses that we have imported from the company card. None of these are out-of-pocket expenses, but if we did create that out-of-pocket expense, it'd show right up at the top of the list. These are also in chronological order. Going through the basic information, we have the merchant information, the total amount of the expense, the allocation, brief allocation information. So we know that we have one allocation it's for this account at this location in this department. And then this is the date, and it's ordered by the date that the transaction occurred, not when it was uploaded to the system. This is when you made the purchase. Clicking on this entire white area or this blue details button will bring up this drop-down menu. This is where you go into edit and add receipts, edit the details, and edit the expense allocations on the created expenses. You can open up multiple expenses on the same page, which makes it really handy. But going through, there's only a few required things. You have to have a receipt. You have to have an assigned to, which most of the time this will not be editable. It'll be predetermined by the system. Because we are in an admin role right now, this is editable. And the business purpose is required. And all of your expense allocations, if you have one or multiple, the sum of all of those allocations must equal the total amount of the entire expense. But editing these allocations is the exact same way as we showed you when creating an out-of-pocket expense. Double click for the list, erase and search for a more filtered view. This plus adds an allocation. The small trash can deletes an allocation. You can't have an allocation of $0 either. So let's add a business purpose in here so we can submit this. We are doing training right now, so we'll add that as our business purpose. This is a Microsoft Office expense. We're going to close that up. We're going to close this one. Here in the search box, this helps us narrow down. If we have a lot of expenses in here, it can help you narrow down, find the one that you have the receipt for. You just type it in there. You can either hit enter or just type it in and let it do its own thing. It'll filter these down by merchant name, business purpose, address, and so on. But to submit it, you just click this green paper airplane. It's the submit button. Clicking that, and we'll see that this is loading. This might be a little slower here on this system than on yours. We are in a testing environment, not the production environment, but it will function the exact same way. So we get this notification that the expense has been submitted. You can dismiss that notification with the X on the right-hand side. So now that Microsoft notification will be in my submitted expenses. Here we go. Here it is. We don't have a receipt, so we need to add one on there. So even though we can see that this is pending and we've submitted it, we can still edit this. The main difference is here, we don't have any way to create new receipts from this screen, but we do have this new bar here and the approval status here. Those correspond, so pending will be yellow, rejected will be red, and approved will be green. Another major difference is you have the date submitted, not the date of the transaction, and you're missing the submit button because it's already been submitted. So going on, this is all very similar. You can edit everything right now because it has not been approved or rejected. It's still pending. Your supervisor has not gone in and either approved or rejected it. So it all is still editable. This is the same for all of these other receipts. And this is kind of just a queue where you can come in, check up on your stuff, check up on your expenses, and see where they are in the process. Moving on to the last kind of common screen, I would say, or common tab is the mileage reimbursements. And this is a new feature in the expense reporting system. And it's basically if you use your own personal vehicle for business trips or for things such as night patrolling. This would be a very common tool for them. This is also on the new mobile app. They'll be able to submit these as well. But looking at here, we have the same search feature, and we have an action button to create a new mileage, and we have previously created and submitted mileages. This is all the information there is. There is no drop down for clicking on here, but you have the destination, the number of miles that was reported, and the reimbursement amount that is calculated in the background. The date that it was created, not necessarily the date that you took the trip, but hopefully you're creating it soon after you take the trip. The same approval process that's going on in the submitted expenses. You have the business purpose and you have who it was created by. But let's look at this new mileage pop-up. You open it up. It's very simple. Just 4 fields: destination, the odometer that your car, the number of miles that your car had on it when you started, the number of miles it had on it when you got to your destination, and the business reason that you traveled there. These all, once you hit that save button, they are automatically submitted. There is no submit button needed. They're automatically submitted to your supervisor for approval. If you are not a supervisor or you're not an accountant or controller, these are the only tabs that you're going to have the ability to see. So you can end the video now if you want, but if you have any questions, contact YESCO software support, or if you have any problems, contact them as well. If you are a approver or supervisor, accountant, or controller or admin, there's a few more options. Moving on to the expenses to approve tab, this is very similar to the old expenses to approve tab. We have the same search, the same user, and then the same kind of layout for the expenses. Clicking on it opens it up, has all the details. They can be edited by us. And then the main differences is we see who submitted it and when, and we have the option to reject and approve. Clicking the reject button brings up this pop-up, which we have to fill out a rejection reason. Maybe they didn't have a receipt. Maybe the receipt was for the wrong expense. Maybe it wasn't actually business related. They used their card for a more personal expense and it got loaded up on here. What you can do is you can enter a reason. You can either send the expense back to the employee, which moves it back to their home screen, where they can then edit it and apply the changes that you specifically request up here in the rejection reason. Or if it was not a business expense at all, you can do a payroll reduction up to the total amount that is on the expense. You can do a part payroll reduction, you can do a full payroll reduction, up to you, but that removes the expense from this queue and moves it into a rejected or processed queue in which it will be entered into NetSuite by the controllers and accountants later on. You have the option to cancel as well, or just click a little X. Clicking the thumbs up approves the expense and moves it into a waiting list waiting to be exported into NetSuite. But it will remove it from this queue And over here, as you can see on both of these, there is a little number that shows how many you have in your list. We're going to move on to the mileages to approve. Very similar. There's no details button, but the reject and approve work very similarly. There is no payroll reduction option on the reject. It's just a full-on rejection, and it will remove this from the field saying, hey, that wasn't a business. That wasn't worth a business expense. It wasn't a business trip. If you are a supervisor and not a controller or an accountant, you don't need to continue on the video. But if you have any questions, contact software support. If you are an accountant or a controller or an admin, these last two are for you. This is where you'll probably spend a lot of your time, is the All Expenses tab. This takes a little while to load up because I have all of the expenses for the entire company on here. But as you can see, when we open it up, it looks a little different. This action bar is a little different. We have our standard search box here, but then we have a bunch of filters so that we can filter this down and make changes when necessary. This is the location filter. I have all of the YESCO locations in here, but clicking on a location will filter this list down to only show you expenses by employees in that location. This should only show you the locations that you are assigned to, unless you have the admin role. This filter is very simple. It's the receipts filter. Do you want ones with receipts, without receipts? Job charges are with job charges, without job charges, with payroll reductions that have been rejected with payroll reductions, or ones that have been rejected without payroll reductions. And the expense type. Do we want to see only out-of-pocket expenses or only imported expenses? Moving on, we now have this sub-list line. Clicking on these changes and loads a new list. For example, we have our unsubmitted, our submitted expenses, approved expenses, rejected expenses, and processed expenses. Other than that, the expenses are edited and they look the exact same way. You can add receipts, add allocations, edit them. You can submit them. You can move them along the line. We've got our approved ones. Here you have the second ability to reject already approved expenses, edit them, and process them so that they can go into NetSuite. This list works a lot of the same ways, but this is just so that we can keep track and make sure everything is going well. The processed is everything that's been uploaded into NetSuite, and it's basically just a history log of all the expenses. The admin dashboard will be used by very few people, but this is where we have just a few button options. We have the ability to export expenses to be uploaded into NetSuite, export the mileages that have been approved to be put into NetSuite, update the credit card company information. This is where we can go in and change user preferences like their standard account, location, department. Here's where we go in and change MCC codes if they need to be changed. This shouldn't ever really need to be changed. And the payment types. And that's pretty much the whole expense reporting system. It's pretty simple and lightweight, and hopefully it can speed up the processing that needs to take place and that we can easily manage all of the expenses. And hopefully the new design and user experience is enjoyable and easy to use. But that is the expense reporting system, and thank you very much. Hope you have a great day.